In 2007, the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts embarked on a project to solve an art historical puzzle for one of the artworks in its holding, the statue of Septimius Severus, an African-born soldier emperor who reigned from 193 to 211. The statue is a fanciful reconstruction made in the 17th century. The head is of the emperor himself, conjoined with the body of another sculpture of unknown origin. The legs, the right arm were added at a time when collectors preferred complete statues rather than having the modern, purist taste for the fragment. This composite was made for one of the most famous collectors of the period, the Marchese Vincenzo Giustiniani of Rome, whose collection numbered over 1,800 examples.
I'm really happy to be here sitting next to a restorer because this is a story about restoration. This statue has had a long life. It was in pieces and put together in the 17th century, and it was bought by the Metropolitan around 1903, taken to the Metropolitan, which still has some statues from this very famous collection. One of the things that you have to know is that the statue is a whole statue, a full-length statue of a guy from head to toe. That was made in the 17th century. In the early 20th century, we want to look for things that are authentic. So what was proposed at one point, even in the life of the statue, was that the only authentic part of the statue was the head, and that we separate the head from the body and just display the head, maybe even without the beard. This is a very modern idea. In the 17th century, they wanted the statues to be whole. In the modern period, after Rodin and modern art, we have the aesthetic of the fragment. But this is the aesthetic of the whole. That was the aesthetic of the 17th century that we're trying to understand.
The decision was made, I think, very reasonably to try to bring it back to what it would have looked like in the 17th century in the Giustiniani collection.
It was really up to the efforts of my colleagues, the conservator, Amy, and the curator of ancient art, to make conclusions about the authenticity of the statue. What we found was not what I hoped, that Giustiniani had put together two pieces of what was originally a complete full-length imperial portrait, but rather that he had gone against his own advice and put together two pieces of statues that don't belong together.
When I first looked at the sculpture and seeing a lot of things in a disordered state, to have the vision to see what it would have looked like in the 17th century and trying to figure out what was what. When I first looked at it, my goodness, it was dirty. A lot of the fills were discolored. A lot of the old kind of joins had fallen out, so there were these large kind of distracting sections that just made no sense. It was impossible to read.